The Nature Photo Guys podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Camera Store, located in Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
It's our go-to spot for everything photography and video. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, the Camera Store has what you need.
And the best part, they ship right across Canada with free shipping on most orders over $99.
The Camera Store is a legendary name in photography, so make sure to check them out today at camerastore.com.
Welcome to the Nature Photo Guys podcast,
where we talk about nature photography, from gear to our philosophies and everything in between.
So grab a cup of coffee, sit back and relax.
You're listening to Joe Desjardins
and Chris Gibbs, the Nature Photo Guys.
Hey guys, welcome to the Nature Photo Guys podcast.
Today's guest is a Scottish artist, writer, musician, and educator whose work blends visual art with deep emotional resonance. Together with his wife, he runs a company dedicated to helping others find their own voice through expressive photography, a practice deeply connected to personal growth and mental well-being. His powerful book, Out of Darkness, explores the relationship between the external landscape and our internal emotional world, revealing how nature can serve as a mirror for self-acceptance and healing. The same body of work earned him one of photography's highest distinctions, being named a Fellow of the Royal Photographic Society in 2021. Through his thought-provoking YouTube channel and best-selling eBooks, he's redefined how we approach photography, not as a technical craft, but as a gateway to meaning, presence, and creative freedom. Please welcome to the show, Alister Benn.
Hi. Hi,
Hello,
Joe.
Alister.
Alister, how's it going?
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you bet. Like we had just chatted earlier there, just off mic, it's been about a year trying to get you on there. You know, life's been busy for everybody, so we're very excited to have you on.
Thank you.
And I guess, we first met actually a couple of years ago, right? That was Lightchasers conference.
2023, I guess, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're coming back.
I am. Yeah. This year.
Topic, or can you share?
Yeah, I'm actually opening the conference on the Saturday morning.
Oh, nice.
And the topic is the miracle of moments.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
So it's designed to be inspiring and motivating and giving us an opportunity, I think, to appreciate how lucky we are.
Excellent.
Not just to have freedom and health and all of these things that we kind of take for granted, but to be able to go out into the world with a camera and engage is a real luxury. And I think we forget that sometimes. I think we get so strung out about our personal style and the mark we're going to leave on the legacy of our art or whatever it might be, or the profundity of it or whatever. But at the end of the day, we're just freaking lucky to get to go out and point our cameras at the things that we love. So,
very true.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of whining and complaining about photography. And so my talk is going to be, let's stop doing that.
Well, I mean, what a way to start the conference. Just inspire everybody to go. Hopefully we have a few participants for the next guest, because everybody's just going to want to go and experience everything. So, that's great.
It's amazing this year because there's so many of my friends are going to be there. I mean, obviously I'll be coming with Adam Gibbs, who's,
that's right.
I mean, him and I are going to be running workshops pretty much all of May in Canada. And then my really good friend Rachel Talabart is coming over from the UK, and Rachel and I know each other super well. Nice. And TJ Thorne and Alex Noriega are going to be coming up. Right. So, I mean, what an opportunity. I mean, it's just plus all my Canadian friends.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I really can't wait. It's super exciting.
Well, they say the Lightchasers conferences seem to get better and better every year. So Shane's sure put a lot into them, and it's amazing.
I reckon 2 years from now, Ansel Adams is going to turn up.
Really?
Yeah, no kidding. Oh, jeez. That's hilarious.
Funny.
So actually, Alice, we're just going to get into, kind of the typical stuff. Like, of course, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started. We know based on, previous interviews I saw, we do a deep dive and see certain things, but, and maybe start how, that corporate world kind of, you know, soured you to the point where it's like, no, that's it, I'm done. And I'm going to move into more the creative side of you. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'll try and keep this sort of reasonably concise. I do have a slight tendency to ramble.
Oh, good. Good.
Old age. So yeah, I basically had a career in international finance and lived in the Far East in lots of exciting places like Borneo and China and Tibet and so forth. And yeah, you end up with a career that pays the bills. That's kind of what life is about to a certain extent. Not many people have vocational careers when they're younger. It takes a lot of guts and vision, I think, to stick to your guns and do what you really believe you want to do when you're in your 20s or whatever. So I ended up in finance, which, it was great. It was a very, really enjoyable career, and I got to travel loads. But obviously, when you're doing about 100 long-haul flights a year, you get burnt out really hard. I mean, really hard burnout. Just being jet lagged the whole time and so forth. So, yeah, I got back into photography in 2002. And at that time, I was living in Malaysia, and it was bird photography that really dragged me back into photography.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so I was a bird photographer, a hardcore bird photographer in my first 5 or 6 years once I got back into it. And, sold a lot of images to magazines and stuff like that and books. But when I really started getting serious about, well, okay, maybe I could do this as a job instead, I just decided, well, landscapes is probably make more sense than trying to make it. Because I was living in China by the mid 2000s, and trying to be a bird photographer in China was a bit mad. So it was through education material that really got me into the professional side of things, writing eBooks and educational material, and then started running workshops in China and Tibet and the Himalayas. And obviously I had a bit of a niche for myself. There wasn't many Western photographers doing that at the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So, the ability to make a living as a photographer, to get to do that is a real privilege. And I enjoy it immensely. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be 2012. I released my first ebook. So that's 13 years now. So
okay.
That's how long I've been making all of my income as a professional photographer.
Just by chance, is that ebook still available to everybody?
It is. It's still on the website. It's funny. It's a thing called Seeing the Unseen. How to photograph the landscapes at night. And obviously, you know quite a few people in your neck of the woods who are very into night photography.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. But back in 2012, it was the first instructional ebook on night photography available. No one had done one up until that point.
Crazy. Oh,
it's really, really insane. And everything was kind of rules of thumb up until that point. So the one I wrote was to try and get past rules of thumb into sort of predictable science of kind of understanding what you were going to get when you opened the shutter for an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I spent about 3 years just trying to work all the stuff out from first principles, how to focus at night, how to manage depth of field, how to do multiple exposures and blend them and all of that stuff. So yeah, 3 years of research and then published the book. And then since then, I think I've released about another 6 or 7 ebooks, something like that.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Excellent. And I noticed you have is this your current book, Out of Darkness?
This guy.
Yep.
There it is.
Yeah. Yes. Is that your latest book? Okay.
Out of Darkness was my first printed book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah, everything else is an ebook or video series and stuff. But yeah, Out of Darkness was the first printed book. That's like a fine art photo book.
Sure. And how was that process for you?
I loved it. I really
Yeah.
loved
Oh,
it.
okay.
Yep, yep.
Okay.
I'm someone who I don't get really fazed by stress or things like that. I tend to just embrace opportunities a lot of the time. So, I mean, obviously, it's a book that covers a fairly traumatic tale. For 30 years of my life, I suffered really badly from anxiety and panic disorder and depression. Up until about 6 years ago, I was pretty wrecked by it, really. And that's how I got in touch with Shane. That's how Shane and I hooked up, was through the mental health side of things. We started talking online about that stuff. Although I was well on the mend by the time I met Shane.
Yeah.
But it's bizarre now to look back 7 or 8 years at the person I used to be, from the position I'm sat now, where I am not stressed, I am not anxious, I'm not panicky, I'm not depressed. And to see that transformation and to live that transformation has been unbelievable. Basically, it's if someone had said to me 10 years ago that you will not have to take any medication or, see a therapist or anything like that, I'd have said, "Nah, you're crazy. This is my life until I die." And now it's just crazy. I mean, I'm the happiest dude on the planet. It's just ridiculous.
Awesome. Wow. Well, good for you. Congratulations on that. Wow.
So yeah, Out of Darkness basically tells the story of that kind of phoenix from the ashes kind of, that transformation, and how art and creativity and being open to your emotional spectrum as an artist can really alter your perspective on how you feel about yourself. And, an awful lot of what we believe isn't always true. Pick a topic.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And you know what else I find too is, not sure if this fits into this part of the conversation, but I find your mood swings really affect how you see the same image.
Totally.
So I can kind of relate to that, because I mean, you're one day you're feeling great, you're looking at that, oh, all this stuff's amazing. Boom, all this stuff is crap. I better put it away, maybe revisit it another time, because it might not be. And the ups and downs and the swings, especially being a creative person, right?
Yeah.
Even post-processing those images in different moods.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You betcha. So did you have a hard time choosing the photos in your book? Like, was that a real struggle? Because
no.
Wow. Okay. So this was really a really good experience, like you said then.
Yeah, but one of my buddies, a guy called Bruce Percy, is a really good friend of mine, another Scottish landscape photographer, awesome photographer. When I grow up, I want to be as good as Bruce. And I've always loved his books. I have a couple of his books in my own collection. And when I decided, it was my wife actually pushed me to do the book. She really wanted me to do a book.
Nice.
And so she really pushed me to get the motivation going. And then I phoned Bruce and just said, listen, I love your books. Who does your books for you? So he hooked me up with his guy, a guy called Darren, who lives down in England. And he has an amazing relationship with a printer in Italy. So I started working with Darren, and we designed a beautiful book. And I did all the writing, which I find very easy. For me, it's not something. Sure. And then I got William Neal and Joe Cornish to write 2 forewords for me. So it's kind of bookended by 2 incredible photographers. And then we sequenced in the images that I'd already done. I'd kind of come up with the concept of kind of dark to light. So it starts off super dark, and then it just transcends into this very light, airy, ethereal kind of images. So there's 132 images in the book from the Gobi Desert. So it's a bit of a beast. It's a bit of a beast of a book. I will be bringing some books to Lightchasers.
Oh, that was my next
Perfect.
question.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna ask that
Because
too.
one of the biggest issues we've had is for me to ship a book to Canada is so expensive.
I couldn't even imagine.
I think it costs us about 70 Canadian to ship one to the States, because it's a heavy book. I mean, it's a big chunky photo book. So we've sold a bunch to Canada, of course, but I'm going to ship over a bunch of books to Shane, and Shane will have them in Pincher Creek for when Adam and I get there. And I'll sell them, and people can pay with credit card, and I'll sign them there and stuff like that. So
that's perfect.
Excellent.
So that'll be cool. So hopefully some folks will be interested in that.
Absolutely. No, that's a great idea. I was going to ask that. And the book is available also on your website?
Yeah.
And you have 3 editions, it looks like.
I was going to say that. There's a couple of versions there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the standard edition is the book itself. Mm-hmm. And then there's a deluxe edition, which comes in this slipcase that I've got behind me, which is a beautiful cloth bound slipcase and a choice of a print. Mm-hmm. And then the collector's edition's insane. It's just insane. It comes in an A2 box, a bespoke A2 box with 5 prints, the book, slipcase, another booklet that I did about the whole process. It comes with a little USB stick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
With Out of Darkness on it.
Nice.
That's crazy.
Which has got music that I composed to go with the images.
Oh, that's cool.
And then an audiobook version and slideshows and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, that's insane, that thing. It's a coffee table book that comes with its own coffee table.
I'm assuming you're not bringing those over with you, or are you?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, we produced 25 of the collector's editions, and we've sold 16 of them. So,
excellent!
But that's a fairly significant purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Sure,
absolutely.
So I'll be bringing over standard editions. If someone wanted a deluxe, they would have to let me know in advance, and I could bring it with me.
Okay. Great. Excellent. Well, this podcast will be out in a lot of time before then. So
in advance, they can reach out to you.
If anybody wants to place an order with you, I would assume they can go ahead, and then you could bring that.
Yeah, exactly. I'll ship it to Shane, and then we'll distribute them at Pincher. Yeah,
great.
Absolutely.
Hey everyone, our Wonders of Waterton Nature Photography and Video Workshop is happening June 5th to 8th.
Don't miss this chance to learn and create in one of Canada's most beautiful parks. Spots are limited. Register now at thenaturePhotoGuys.ca. So that's a perfect segue. So you can talk about your music career there. I mean, we noticed the guitar, we noticed keyboards and certain videos, that kind of stuff. So
and we know you're a big fan of a certain Canadian rock band. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So give her.
Well, first and foremost, I don't have a musical career, and very much for a reason, which is guitar playing for me was something I started when I was 13. So what's that, 45 years ago? It was bands like Rush and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and all of that type of proggy Genesis, that type of thing. So big guitar players in my life were obviously David Gilmour, Alex Lifeson, Steve Hackett, people like that, and Robert Fripp from King Crimson. So kind of progressive rock, I guess. Basically, the thing with prog is that it's hard to play. It's not like being into Nirvana or punk, or where you can kind of learn a few chords and strum along and you can play anything. Sure. A lot of progressive music is quite difficult to play. So I've never been as good as I want to be as a guitar player. Even though I'm a decent guitar player, I'm never going to think of myself as a good guitar player. So yeah, guitar is my main instrument. The other stuff, all of this kind of MIDI instruments and stuff is great. It's so good, and you don't need to learn to play to make that. You just need to have an ear. But music's one of those things where we're in the process of building this house out here on the Isle of Lewis, and I'm building a big studio in the house. So I'm going to have a big photo studio come music studio in the house. So I'm kind of excited to move because we're in a rented house here right now. So it's all a bit cluttered and suboptimal. But yeah, I mean, music has always been in my life. It's a huge thing for me. And even, I've traveled so much in my life and lived all over the world and stuff, but I've always had a guitar. It's like I've always had a guitar in the house. And now I've got 6. I've got the 6
Oh, wow.
now. So
Yeah.
I've got a very understanding wife.
Yeah. Oh, no kidding. No kidding. So this studio, it's going to be a recording studio for your music. And you said photography. So what kind of work as far as photography goes? You're not into like portraits and any of that kind of stuff, are you? Like you're not into that genre at all, right?
No. It's purely for printing.
Okay.
Just it'll be more like print studio rather than. So
excellent.
I mean, obviously, I've got my day-to-day workspace that I need, but from a recording point of view, these days you can just do everything through a Mac. So it's you don't need tons and tons of mixing desks or anything like that anymore. And all of my guitar playing is through the computer. I don't need an amp even. So it's amazing what you can do now. So
did you use that Ableton Live to create that music, or what do you use?
Ableton is the DAW I tend to use most of the time. I really like Ableton, and this thing on my desk is an Ableton Push, which basically works like a keyboard. But you can record drums with it, and it's amazing, and you can loop and do all sorts of weird stuff. So the music side of things it's the thing about it is when your job is to be a professional photographer, it's kind of one of those things where when you're self-employed, you're never off. It's very hard to turn off work. And I've had to make a real decision to say, okay, there are certain things I need to do less of to give myself time to do more of the things I want to do. And what I've found since October last year, I made a real decision to change how I spend my time. Like YouTube, backing away from YouTube has been a real breath of fresh air for me, because that commitment, obviously, up until 2020, the spring of 2020, I didn't really have a YouTube channel. I mean, most of my career was selling education material online and running face-to-face workshops. That was the 2 things that were my career. Most photographers these days make their money through education rather than from their images. Well, the ones I know anyway. But obviously, when the pandemic came along in March of 2020, our career disappeared. It was like I had 18 months of sold out workshops in the diary, none of which happened. So, you go from having 18 months worth of guaranteed income in front of you to none. So I got my head down and built quite a large online community, and then the YouTube channel, and built up that. And of course, you do your best and you replace the income that you lost, or some of it anyway. So the YouTube channel became a necessity, a real necessity. It was a great way to reach not just your existing audience, but an audience that didn't know who you were yet. So, this kind of idea of growth, sustainable growth of your market. And it was such a huge lifeline for myself and my wife. We have, you've got bills to pay the same as everybody else. It's not like, photographers are all millionaires who don't need to work and we only do this for fun. It is work. If someone gets laid off at an office job, they are out of work. If we don't have clients paying us for our services, we are out of work. It's not a hobby. So you do what's necessary to make your income within your ethical framework, your ethical and moral framework. So we did a really good job of that, and I was very grateful for the whole thing. But once workshops started again, so all of a sudden you've got 2 jobs. It's like having a 9 to 5 and then working nights. And anyone who has had to do that or does that knows that you have no time for anything. You just have no time. You wake up in the morning and you have a to-do list, and you go to bed with things left on the list that you haven't done.
Exactly. While you're adding to the list during the day.
And you think about it while you're sleeping.
Yeah. And one thing that happens straight away is you don't shoot anymore. Unless you're making a video, which means you only make images when you're making videos, and therefore the images, they're not going to be your best work. So yeah, I mean, I did that for all the way through. Well, workshop started up at the back end of 22. So all the way through 23 and 24, I was running workshops and doing weekly YouTube content and doing other things like mentoring and, doing other online stuff, conferences and webinars and all of that type of thing as well. And it was just too much. It was just crazy. So, by the middle of November last year, I got to the point where I just thought, because I was coming up to a busy time. It was going to be Christmas and New Year, and then I was going to be away in Morocco for 3 weeks in January, and then I was off to other workshops and stuff in the new year. And I got to a point where I thought, I need to make 8 videos in the next 2 weeks to cover this time I'm going to be away. Yeah. I remember losing sleep over it and really, thinking about, what am I going to talk about? And, how can I make them clickbait and all of that rubbish? And then you've got sponsors breathing down your neck, asking, they're wanting content. So I just took the decision saying, okay, I'm just going to kill all sponsorships and I'm just going to knock YouTube on the head. And then I didn't have 8 videos to make, and I felt a lot better.
The stress must have just washed off. Absolutely.
Yeah, because those would have probably felt forced to even make, right? And what would the content end up looking like, right? So,
well, the problem is that your existing audience just feels like you've sold out.
Yeah, they come to expect something for you.
Yeah. So the reason they subscribe to you in the first place no longer exists, and I wouldn't subscribe to me.
Right.
Under those circumstances. Yeah. So it was really funny. So about 3 weeks ago, I posted a video when I'd been away in Morocco, and I posted a video when I got back. I'd been at a Scottish workshop. I posted one sort of late February, and it did really well. It was just all of a sudden, just out of the blue, I posted the video and tons of people watched it. And no ads, no Google ads, no sponsorship, no nothing, just me talking about something I was really passionate about. And that's what's going to happen, is that when I've got something I want to say, or something that I think might be useful, I'll make a video and I'll stick it up there, and that's it.
Perfect.
That's a good way to look at it.
On
for
your
sure.
terms. Yeah, absolutely. Not feeding the algorithm, not feeding, like you said, the pressure of sponsorships. It's just going to be absolutely genuine content, stuff you just want to talk about in the moment, and moving forward. So,
and it'll feel a lot more natural too, to the audience as well, right?
Yeah, and it's fun. It's I think a lot of us we do this job because it's fun. And
in the beginning,
well,
but no, I mean, I'm kind of joking a little bit there. I mean, we continue to do it because it's fun, but when it's your day job now, there's all kinds of added pressure.
Things change a little bit. Yeah, you got to try to make sure that you keep your mind out of that idea. But
it's the same with everything, though. That if you don't notice when it's not fun, or you're not prepared to change something, it's like, okay, I could make X number of dollars more per year with the sponsorship, or I can have time to go for a walk with my wife along the coast. It's like, okay, I'm going to choose spending time with my wife. It's
Alistair, there's a lot of YouTubers that have actually made videos about that. I'll just drop a name, Thomas Eaton. He did one years
Yeah.
ago where he had said he makes so much. He said approximately makes this much money per video, but he's still only going to put out 2 videos a month. Like every 2 weeks, he's going to do it. But he says I could double my income if I went weekly.
Yeah.
But then he is talking about burnout and spending time with his family and his dog and this and that and having time for himself to shoot and everything else.
Right.
So I think it's a very common theme. Like you get to a certain point where, okay, you're making, decent money, but, for lack of a better word, you have a life outside of YouTube, right? And
for sure.
And so where's the fine line for that, right? So
the other thing is also, I mean, I'm doing less workshops now, and the bottom line is that I've got more people wanting to come on workshops than I've got time to run workshops. So I don't need 500 new clients a year.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd rather have
I'd
rather have a better relationship and more time for the clients that I do have than chasing new clients.
That's
so
excellent.
It's I just decided that authenticity was way more important, and more and more I want to have a life that's fulfilled. And I want to give the time to the people I care about and spend time with the people I care about, and just deliver a very authentic version of myself, and I think that's something you will have noticed at Lightchasers the couple of times we've met down at Pincher, that, you ask me an honest question, I'll give you an honest answer.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not one of these guys that's going to give you the company line, so it's life's too short.
Well, that story kind of resonates with me, especially. I mean, I was in the corporate world for 30 years in broadcast television on the technical side. In 2019, I stepped away, and because I was just kind of done, right? And started a photography and video career, and then COVID hit. So I was kind of in the same. But for the last 6 years, I've been pretty much working 7 days a week, running a business with my wife. And in November, I felt the same thing. It's like, this has got it. Like, I'm in my 50s now. Something's got to give here. So I've been working on that too, actually trying to take the odd day off, weekends if I can, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that story definitely resonates with, I'm sure, a lot of people as well who are trying to make a career in photography too. So,
yeah. Or even just people in any other career,
True.
We having a photography career isn't somehow special or different. It's true. I know plenty of accountants that get burnt out.
Yes. That's fair enough.
I think we always forget to make time for ourselves.
So I was just thinking about social media in general, because YouTube was a kind of a big part of that. But did you step away from, say, like Instagram and Facebook? Did you kind of put
pretty
that
much
kind of stuff aside? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. The way social media is going, now don't quote me on any of this, because I'm probably not a reliable source of this. But from what I've heard, that Facebook and Meta, which basically owns that whole Facebook organization, they're in this business to make money.
Of course.
There's no other reason other than making money, so they're getting it from advertising and all of this type of stuff. And at the end of the day, our content is what drives that. Now, Zuckerberg, I believe, has publicly stated that within a certain number of years, the vast majority of content on Facebook will be AI. It will be artificially driven content, purely because it's more engaging than our content.
So it's crazy to even think about.
We're going to be the people clicking the links to buy the stuff, but most of the content is going to be fake accounts. And at the end of the day,
sad.
I mean, there's, I appreciate that I'm a semi-public figure. I'm not Brad Pitt, but I can go down to the supermarket not get mobbed, but I do get recognized, and I am I am a somewhat known public figure in my field. But anyone who knows me, and they have multiple ways of getting in touch with me.
Right.
Everyone who I genuinely care about has my email address or my cell phone number. And, I don't need to post every thought that comes into my head on Facebook or Instagram or X. I just don't believe the world is any better with me posting a photograph of my breakfast. So I just don't care. I don't care what my friends have for breakfast. I don't care where they're drinking their coffee. I just don't care.
Absolutely.
And I only really engage with photography through books now anyway. So, I mean, my wife and I bought 4 photo books this week.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what we do. We like to support artists who are producing content, or we buy prints. So, I'm kind of done with, I don't want to share my work on social media, because seeing something on a cell phone, it's not how I want my work to be consumed anyway. So I think I can't remember the last time I posted on Facebook. It's a good while.
Sure. Yeah. So are you dependent on your newsletter to reach your audience then? Because that's
how you stay connected. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that they can't take away from you.
Yeah. I've got a good sized newsletter. Got several thousand people on a newsletter. So I like to try and get one out every couple of weeks. When I'm away on workshops, it can push out to 3 weeks or 4 weeks, but at least monthly, generally every couple of weeks. And what, again, I'm trying to do with that is to share things that are on my mind, or insights that I'm having, or things that I've thought about that might be useful to other people. So it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of it as like a sort of inspirational think tank opportunity to just try to share ideas and stuff. And so, because there's nothing worse than every time you put out a newsletter, it's, oh, well, I've got this workshop. Oh, I've got this ebook. Oh, I've got this book, buy something. Yeah. So I'm trying to reduce the number of, here's something that you might be interested in spending money on to, a few times a year, versus the majority of the content is, listen, maybe you'll find this useful, type of thing.
Sure.
Because if they want to go on a workshop, they know where to find your information about your workshops, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And the great thing, I mean, I've discussed this, or we've discussed this with other podcast participants. Newsletter's yours. I mean, if Meta shut down tomorrow, if your sole business is dependent on TikTok, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Insta, all that kind of stuff, if it went away tomorrow, you could still connect with your audience.
And we've seen this with Meta and Facebook before. I had friends who had 500,000 followers on their Facebook business page. And about 6 or 7 years ago, they changed that algorithm so that unless you were paying, they wouldn't share your posts. So 500,000 people want to hear from you, and Meta would share it with 5,000 of them for free. And then the rest of them, it was like, well, if you want us to send a post there, you're going to have to pay. And it was ludicrously expensive. So there was people who'd spent years building up huge Facebook pages. So yeah, a newsletter. I mean, I pay a lot of money every year for my newsletter.
Correct.
Hosts. These are not.
Right.
These are not cheap platforms to run. You're paying over $100 a month.
Yeah, absolutely.
US, for a moderately sized newsletter. So again, it's an investment that we made to share this information out with our audience. But yeah, I mean, it's the business of photography is kind of one of those necessary evil things. I am okay at it. I think I could have a much more successful business if I was a ruthless bastard.
But that's not you. So
it's just
But
not
it's
who
not
I
you.
am.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah.
And, I'm just not interested in that type of business model where you manipulate your audience to make money out of them. I'd rather just try and be honest and have some kind of moral code. And that's the Neil Peart effect right there. Having some kind of moral compass that drives your day-to-day life.
for sure.
But I think I'm still more interested in creativity and what motivates us to be creative, and the emotional and physical well-being that having an outdoor nature inspired life can give you. The business of photography is it's right up there with talking about gear.
What kind of gear do you shoot, Alister?
Yeah, that's a good time. No.
Expensive type.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
we had to ask you that question, and it sounds like you're a big Fuji shooter.
Yeah, I made the shift reasonably recently. I think.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember. It was 20. When did I come to Pincher the first time?
2023. Yeah.
23. Yeah.
I think it was early 23.
Okay.
22 or 23. I can't remember. It could have been 22. God, I'm sounding like a really old guy now. Let's say it was March 23. So yeah, a couple of years, maybe more. It might be 22. But yeah, I'd worn out 5 Nikon D850s over the number of years, 5 or 6 years since that camera had been out. Yeah, I'd been a Nikon shooter for ages. And I used to hang out a lot with my buddy Adam, and he was shooting the GFX. And I kind of wanted a change. I knew that I was going to have to go mirrorless. And, I thought, well, if I'm going to have to invest in a whole new system, I might as well do something completely. And I'd shot medium format before. I just kind of fancied the change. And I really like cropping in camera. So all the options that the Fuji GFX 100 does. And it's amazing. It's an incredible tool, but so is the Nikon Z8 or Nikon Z9.
Sure.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
I know... Nikon Canada do such a great job with their ambassadors. Shane, of course, and Monica, and all those guys are Nikon shooters now. And if Nikon gave me a bunch of free gear, I'd be very happy to shoot Nikon. But the Fuji kit. I mean, honestly, where we're at with gear these days, it doesn't matter,
Sure.
I 100% agree with that.
All the brands are good.
I'm sure you get
stuff.
the question all the time. So what brand, what camera should I buy? What, and for beginners, I always tell them anything off the shelf, go buy a kit, it comes with a decent camera body, decent lens, have fun with it. And then expand your kit if you want to. And if it's not, something you want to pursue any further, then you only invested maybe $500-$600, because it's absolutely, think about what we shot with, or, your first DSLR, or.
It was that Canon 10D. I had a Canon 10D was my first, 6 megapixels, 2003, I think it was.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's crazy now, technology and what that's come along. So like you said, I would 100% agree. Anything and everything, even the newer, closer to the newer, even some of the older stuff, like 10 years. I mean, there's, I recently watched a YouTube video, commercial photographer, and, he was talking about the order of importance for things you should purchase. And for him, it was modifiers. Second was lights. And then like cameras and everything were down there. Cause he said, as a commercial photographer, said anything after 2008, anybody will take. Any of these agencies are okay with it. And he's strictly like a high-end a commercial photographer. That's all he does for ad campaigns and everything. But it was interesting to hear his order of importance. But he made a really good point with the cameras. Like, oh my God, anything over, like, I mean, even whatever it is, whatever year it is, 2008, 9, and moving forward, is still a really good camera. You know,
I mean, in
really
2007, I was shooting with a Hasselblad H3 with a phase 1. PH50 P45 on the back, and
ouch,
that was pretty handy. It was, so
when you start saying phase 1, I'm just like, oh, because I was a studio photographer too, and looking at the transitions, because we shot like Hasselblad in the studios, and you know, and then they were talking digital backs, and we're like, oh my God, the investment in something like that.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
We continued to shoot film for a lot of years after that, but shot film, scanned everything.
We just want to take a quick break to give a shout out to our title sponsor, The Camera Store in Calgary, Alberta.
The Camera Store is where we go for all our photography and video gear, whether you're a beginner or a seasoned professional. They've got you covered.
Plus, they ship right across Canada with free shipping on most orders over $99. You can find everything you need at thecamerastore.com. The Fuji stuff has come a long way. Like I switched when I was starting my business or whatever. I didn't think Canon was where they needed to be on the video side, so I did switch to Fuji for a bit, the XT series. So I had XT, XT3, XT4, that kind of thing. But I shoot a lot of wildlife, so I was always attaching the adapter and going back to my Canon lenses because there wasn't any long telephotos. But I think they've changed that now. I think you're shooting a longer telephoto lens now as well.
Yeah, there's a 500.
They do have a 500. Okay,
there's a 500 prime for the GFX 100. So that's the equivalent of 400 mil on 35 mil. So to go out with a 500 mil f5.6 lens on a 102 megapixel medium format camera, that's shooting birds with it, and I can get 8 frames a second with that. So it's insane. I mean, this is
a Fuji lens, Alister, or is it like something with you?
No, it's a Fuji. Fuji brought out last year a lens for the GFX 500 prime. I just had it in Morocco. I was over in Morocco in January, and I was shooting with this thing there, and it's insane. It weighs nothing.
Oh, really?
It's insane. Yeah, I mean, I'm hand holding this 500 f5.6 on this GFX, and it's just incredible. So, yeah, no complaints, no complaints. Wow. I'm probably gonna bring it to Canada actually.
Oh, nice.
Well, I'd love to see that if it's at Lightchasers.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah, before they had a 100 to 400, I think they had come up with at that time, and then
100 to 2.
100 to 2, okay, and they had a 200 f2 or something like that, but there wasn't anything really long at that point. So I'm glad they came out with something.
Prime, they had a 250 prime, but then the 500 came out last year, and it's just insane.
Oh, that's amazing. So,
what are you thinking now? Back to Fuji? Now that they got a 500?
I got way too much invested in Canon now. I can't make a switch unless Fuji wants to help out.
Well, Fuji Canada are great. Fuji Canada
they are
great.
Great guys. Yeah.
I'm going to be talking to them. Lightchasers.
There you go. They're great guys.
That's a really great point. Every camera system is awesome out there. We always joke about Canon and Nikon, but just trying to make that switch, the amount of money, the tens of thousands of dollars you have invested, and to say that Fuji's where I want to be at now over where Canon's at, I can't even imagine. Like I mean, the loss you would take, selling used gear to buy new gear and everything else. So.
And I love the Fuji stuff. The tactile buttons, all that stuff was amazing. I really loved their systems.
It's I'm very lucky that I get to do this for a living, and obviously the company's buying the equipment. It's not coming out my income, so it's But yeah, I mean, I shoot with 100 Mark II, the GFX 100 Mark II, and I don't see me changing that in a while.
Sure.
You know, I'd imagine it'll be quite a few years I'll be shooting that with. I'd be surprised if I'm not shooting that 5 years from now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
For sure. Especially with landscapes and everything, that's like a one-stop shop there for sure. So
yeah, it's amazing.
Nice segue there, Chris, because I wanted to ask Alister about his Photographer of the Year in 2020.
Oh, a few years ago.
I know it's a few years back, but that's a pretty great accomplishment, you know, to be recognized, you know, from some of these places. I think it was with Capture Landscapes. What kind of a organization is that? Was it a publication? Was it like a?
It'd be quite embarrassing. I can't remember.
Okay. So why don't we jump over to the naturephotography.classes.com? We'll just pass on that one.
No, I mean, I remember getting the email from them about it, and it was it was amazing. I mean, it was unexpected, and I stopped entering contests quite a few years ago because I'm not mad about judging photography, and I'm not convinced that contests, I've got to be very political here, however well-intended contests are, at the end of the day, it's still opinion.
Yes.
And it might be the opinion of some very revered people, but it's still opinion. And I just feel that as photography, as an art form, is increasingly devalued by social media, where more photography is judged in a fraction of a second and people don't spend time really engaging with work. And particularly, they're not questioning why they might not like something. You know, it's like, imagine if the only music we listened to was the top 40. Now, if someone had said that to me in 1978, I could say, I could listen to this.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like there was some really amazing music in the charts in the late 70s and early 80s. But if someone said to me, you can only listen to 2025 chart music, I would not be a happy guy at all. And
agreed.
If someone said to me, you can only look at the most popular photographs, I would not be a happy guy either. And I think it's very difficult where social media drives this emphasis on external validation as somehow proof of value. And I strongly disagree with it. So, if someone sends me an email and says, you know, well, yeah, you've been, you know, voted or nominated as photographer of the year or whatever, I don't think that should really change my relationship with my own work. It doesn't make me feel better about myself. You know, it was kind of like the thing with the Royal Photographic Society. You know,
that was next on the list. Cool. Wow, you're segueing right into that, Alister. Perfect.
I'm a professional, man. I've read my own bio.
There you go.
You know, it's you know, if you do this long enough, you are going to accumulate a certain amount of this type of thing. But it's way more important for me to feel good about my process and to feel good about the work that I make for myself. And there's a really great expression, which is, it is better to polarize than normalize. And I think if you make work that's provocative and challenges people, and some people just say, I hate this, and some people say, I love this, I'd rather have that than everyone say, it's okay. So
no, I totally agree with that, because you know, you've raised or some sort of an emotion, right? Like the work spoke to them, whether it was negative or positive to them, right? So you had an impact with that photograph, whether they loved it or not, you know?
Yeah, and just because I don't like Nicki Minaj doesn't mean she sucks.
Right.
Lots of people love her, and that's great. It's just, it's not for me. And
absolutely. Yeah.
So, does she care about my opinion? I bet you she doesn't, and I just think it's dangerous, especially for people who, a lot of artists have questionable self-worth. We can all be a bit needy sometimes, and constant rejection can be a challenge. Constantly being told this sucks can be a challenge, and I think that's part of our development as artists is to get to that point where you feel good about it yourself. And the other thing is the development of craft. Understanding the role of craft, so that it's like, okay, well, stylistically, I'm happy the way this looks, and I'm happy that there aren't any obvious technical flaws. It's like every slider's at 100, and it's grungy and crunchy, and there's sharpening halos and shadow and highlights halos and all of that. So as long as it's not technically flawed, it's like me making a piece of music with the guitars out of tune. And not noticing, it's that type of thing. So as long as we feel that care has been taken, and aesthetically it's saying something for us. If somebody doesn't like it, it doesn't mean it's bad. No. So I just think I'm more interested in people developing that I feel good about it. And the thing about that is it's almost by default then that other people will like it. It might not be the biggest audience in the world. It's like Rush. Rush is they used to kind of consider themselves to be like the ultimate geek band. They they weren't Aerosmith or Kiss or whatever, but for the people who got them, they were it, and they did everything purely for themselves. They made music that they loved. And if there was enough people who loved it that bought enough records or went to enough gigs, then they made a living, and that's all they really cared about. No, they never aspired to be the richest, most successful band in the world. So I don't know. I just think artistic integrity is a lot more important than external validation.
For sure. Even their just to touch on Rush, even their content, it wasn't geared at radio. I mean, a lot of their songs were 11, 12, 14 minutes, right? I mean, that wasn't what they were after. They were looking at creating content or creting art for themselves and for people who enjoyed it. So you're right.
Yeah. It's, it's very easy to be swayed by popular niches or styles, and you see it all the time. You only have to go onto social media to just see what's in at the moment in landscape photography. And there's a couple of pioneers out there. Mark Adamus is still at the forefront of things, making some amazing images, and there's for every Mark Adamus there's 10,000 people who want to be Mark Adamus. And I just think it's much more important. I've always thought of myself as, I might not be the best, but I'm 100% me. I'm the best. I'm the best in the world at being Alister Benn. And that's enough.
Wow.
That's an awesome way to look at it.
Yeah. And I hope our audience can truly relate to that and get something from that. Cause I just did. That's a great way of looking at it. Cause a lot of times you get caught in on the business side of things. You get the likes and the clicks, sure, it makes you feel good and everything. But I think being truly authentic is where it's supposed to be. Cause, right. If you really think about it, those people, being authentic, your followers are your true followers. You could certainly get hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, but I mean, look at right now. You see these, if you do a little bit of digging, these creators that have, say 500,000 followers, a lot of their images are getting 2,000 or 3,000 likes, their video, that kind of stuff. For one, the algorithm practically changes itself every day. But
it's all
the fact,
that's right.
It's all
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, well, that's it too, right? So if you can get that core group to engage with you all the time, like and interact, and like it's those are your core people. So in the end, it really I shouldn't say it doesn't matter what you create. You're just creating for yourself, and yeah, those people are going to love it. I mean,
I
that's why
think
they're following
sharing,
you.
it's an interesting one. I mean, I have this discussion quite frequently with friends of mine. Is why do we share
Mm-hmm.
at all?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of get it. If you've got a business, your images are kind of a calling card, and they're proof of practice or proof of method or whatever it might be, or to get across a concept or to illustrate a learning point or whatever. But why do we share? And I think my feelings on that is that there's a beautiful expression, test for echo, also the name of a Rush album. But that idea of testing for echo is, I think this is interesting, or I think this is intriguing, or I think this is beautiful. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like, it's almost, I think there's a certain altruism in sharing images. I remember getting an email from someone a few years ago, and it was literally, I think I was in China. I was still living in China, and I got an email, opened up my inbox one morning, and there was an email from a guy in New York. And he said, I just wanted to reach out to you and thank you for posting your images of the Himalaya. I said, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment that looks across an alley to a wall. And every day I look on the internet and I see your images, and it reminds me that there's a world out there worth caring about. Wow. And I just went, it was just like, when that's someone else's life and that's their view. I mean, my view at the time was the Himalayas. I mean, literally the view out of my office window was big pointy mountains.
Right.
So every day I could see this stuff, but we just forget how lucky we are. And I'm never, ever, ever going to take my job for granted again. Ever.
Absolutely.
Good for you. Yeah.
Absolutely. You mentioned the fellow of the Royal Photographic Society. Can you just touch base on that? Because I'm just kind of curious as to what that is. Like, we do have our Canadian version. I think it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
But what is that, Photographic Society?
The Royal Photographic Society is a very old and well-established photographic society here in the UK. And it is a Royal Photographic Society. So it's kind of recognized as being significant. They, like many of these, the American Photographic Association, the Australian, they all have the same basic gist, which is you can submit a body of work and there are various levels of award that you can get. So they have 3 levels: licentiate, which I've always found is a very odd word, associate, and then fellow. And when I was putting the book together, I thought, I wonder if it would be useful to have some kind of stamp of approval from the RPS. So I submitted a body of work, and they gave me a fellowship. That's the basic gist. But it is, I mean, it's kind of a big deal. But I was at the conference actually not long ago. They had a landscape photography conference, and I was one of the speakers, and it was amazing. It was amazing. The other speakers were incredible, and I was there for a couple of days and ran a little mini workshop and stuff like that. And, obviously the members are super excited and interested in photography, and many of them are incredible photographers themselves. Like, it's like Lightchasers. I mean, most of the audience are pretty freaking awesome photographers. So, it's, but, like a lot of these societies, they're big and unwieldy, and they are steeped in tradition, and in many cases, I think that can hinder development and progress, because they have to be conservative to a certain extent. And, there's I'd like to do more to try and change that. If I was perfectly honest, and if I was to sit down and talk with Joe Cornish about it, who's heavily involved with the RPS, I'd have a conversation to have about some of those things, but
sure.
I just don't have the time right now. But
Sure.
I mean, it's it's something that I'd like to do. It's really bizarre because it's societies like that, they get kind of criticized for being like old white guys, and I know that by the time I have time to actually invest in it, I'm going to be an old white guy. What are you going to do?
Funny. Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, great. Thanks for touching base on that. Of course, like I said, we're doing our deep dive. All these cool facts come up, and just wanted to expand a little bit on that. Hey everyone, our Wonders of Waterton Nature Photography and Video Workshop is happening June 5th to 8th.
Don't miss this chance to learn and create in one of Canada's most beautiful parks. Spots are limited. Register now at thenaturephotoguys.ca.
So right now, any projects on the go? Do you have like another book? Are you, primarily just workshops and travel? Or is it stuff you can't share?
No, I'm a sharer. Up until the beginning of June, I'm traveling. So it's been quite a busy year so far. I was in Morocco for 3 weeks, and then running Scottish trip, and then Spain for 2.5 weeks. And I've been home here on the island. I live out in the Isle of Lewis, which is beautiful, beautiful place, right out in the ocean. We've been building this house, so hopefully in the summer we get to move into that.
Perfect.
And then the autumn is all workshops again. But project-wise, my project has been me. I really wanted to put some time into me, because I think it's the one thing that we don't develop very much. We buy more gear, we buy more lenses, we buy more software, we buy more filters, we buy more camera bags, we go on more photo trips, we do all of this stuff.
Yep.
And the bottom line is it's the same monkey behind the viewfinder. So I really wanted to spend some time on me. So from October last year until now, I've been heavily spending time in this. Got really back into meditating in a big way, which I've been doing since I lived in Tibet, really in about 2006, 2007. I got really into it then. So for about 10, 15 years, I meditated regularly. But last October, I really got back into it in a big way, working with a teacher. And that's really changed things for me. My perspective's changing, my belief system's changing, my relationship with the world is changing, my relationship with other people is changing, and it's all for the better, really. So I feel very chilled, like majorly chilled, and it's just changing everything. When I pick up the guitar, it's a different person holding the guitar. And when I pick up a camera, or when I go out for a run, or anything that I do, I'm just so much more engaged with it. So really that's been the big project. And it's just affecting everything in such a positive way. So that's good.
Good for you. Yeah, that's amazing. Jeez.
No, I don't even know how to respond to that. I think we can all benefit, of course, from self-improvement. How do I say this? I'm guilty of buying another lens. This extra camera bag between this size and this size would just be perfect if I ever do this. So I better grab one of those and put that on a shelf just in case. But 3 years later, it still has a tag on it, that sort of thing. But actually working on yourself, thinking about yourself, that's I really appreciate you saying that. And I'm sure a lot of the audience appreciates that too, Alister.
There's a wonderful
thank you for that.
expression. I had a really funny, the problem is when I start talking to people in workshops now, even people I know really well, because it all gets a bit zen some of the time, really. And you can say something to somebody and it's almost like you can hear the explosion in their head and they kind of look at you with vacant eyes and it's just, they just don't know what to say. It's just like, I just don't know how to process what you've just said. I said to someone in Morocco, they said, well, photography is really about how you feel. And I said, how do you know what you feel? And he was just like,
that's deep.
So
too deep. Let's go for a beer.
So that was kind of fun. But it's, I said to someone again recently, we talk about putting the cart before the horse, and, sometimes you just gotta, you have to focus on yourself. We try and change ourselves by trying to change everything else except ourselves.
Wow.
You're right.
It's insane. Yeah. It's as soon as you start changing yourself, everything else changes. So it's the easiest way to get change is to just say, okay, well, it will be different now.
And the hardest thing to get started because you're so caught up in everyday life. You get up, you're on the computer, you're in your office, you're this, you're that. Next thing you know, you're exhausted and it's time for bed and you wake up and you do the exact same thing.
It's really weird because I get up an hour earlier than I used to. I get up at 5 in the morning now. I used to get up at 6 and I go to bed later. So I'm getting 2 hours less sleep a night, but I've got more energy and I get more done. And I have more free time. So, I've got really good at doing the one thing that I'm doing with 100% focus. So it's like we're having this conversation and there's nothing else in my mind. I'm not thinking about anything else that I need to do. It's just we're having this conversation and I can be fully engaged with it. And what happens after this happens after this. And I just get so much more done and I'm so much more productive and the quality of work that I do is better because I only do that. So it's weird, but I've had to make time in my life for that to happen. So getting rid of some of that obligation work helped.
Well, and I'm sure we'll see that in your presentation at Lightchasers. 100% focused on the audience, your presentation, being present, not, like you said, not somewhere else thinking about, I have to get here, I have to get there.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm really excited about that because it's a real honor to be first on. I'm really excited that Shane's given me that opportunity. Because I love Shane. I mean, he's such a beast of a guy, it's exciting. I'm really looking forward to my month in Canada.
Well, we're looking forward to it as well. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this will be we haven't missed one yet. So
we've been to
we're excited to see what it's coming up in the years to come. And he'd actually changed venues this year, I think, to something larger. Chris.
Yeah, it's kind of a barn type atmosphere on a heritage site. So yeah, it's a lot different than what we're used to. So it's going to be great. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Chris is part of the team doing primarily. You're doing the video, right, Chris? The BTS stuff.
I help Shane set up and stuff like that and swag bags, but I also do all the behind the scenes video and content and help here and there wherever Shane needs me, I'm there for him. So
yeah, you bet. You bet.
No,
well, I'm glad you mentioned, or I mentioned video, or you mentioned video. But do you do any video, Alister? Do you find over the years you kind of thought, I should maybe. I shouldn't say
aside from the YouTube stuff.
Yeah, aside from the YouTube stuff. But are you out there in nature workshop? Are you capturing any of that with video? Or are you just strictly photos, like like in that?
I'm in this kind of transition phase just now. When you asked about project, there's a couple of things that are on the cards. Adam Gibbs and I are starting to record some video courses.
Okay.
So Adam and I are going to be collaborating, and we're going to be releasing video courses starting the fall of this year. So
exciting.
We are approaching, because photography education is there's so much content, and we really want to make something that's effective, properly effective. When someone hands over their hard-earned bucks, we want to make sure that they can use this content and really get out of it what they want to get out of it. And that comes with an obligation on the behalf of the purchaser. It's like, do the work. When work needs done, do the work. And we really want to encourage that kind of ethos. So I think Adam and I are a good mix for doing that. We're a good team and we know each other really well. So we will be making a lot of video content for that. They will be video courses. But in terms of artistic video, it's something that I do record a lot of content. The GFX is a very, very capable video camera. The 100 Mark II is an excellent video camera. You can shoot all sorts of different, video file types and different color grading and all of this type of stuff. Raw video, I guess. And my wife is an excellent video editor. She's really, really excellent at that. So there are some things that I really want to do. The first thing I want to do in terms of a new project is going to be doing a multimedia version of Out of Darkness. I want to do a proper digital version of the book because, it's an expensive book and people love physical books and we've sold a bunch of them, but obviously it's still an expensive book. And shipping around the world and all of that. So making a digital version of it is something I really want to do. I've been working on a bunch of tech for that, but also living out here on the island is a stunning and fascinating place with a rich history. And I would love to do something about the island out here.
Wow.
Nice. As a combination of a book and a sort of media presentation type thing. So I do shoot a lot of video. We have killer light. We've got huge storms and auroras, and so pretty wild up here because we're at 58 North. We're about the same as Churchill. So we're pretty up there. So it's way further north than you think.
Yeah.
When you consider where that border between Canada and the US is, we're a lot further north than that.
Absolutely.
It's I think video is an incredibly expressive medium. However, the quality of commercial video now is just insane. It's 10 years ago, the difference between consumer and commercial wasn't so huge. Now it's, these wildlife, these Canon 5 to 1000 or 50 to 1000 mil and with a red back and all of this. It's just,
they're at a different level for sure.
150 grand's worth of kit. So you're not doing that with your iPhone 16.
No.
So I think we can make beautiful 4K. I don't really think we're going to, I can't do much more than that right now. I don't think realistically.
There are some smaller, like for example, I shoot with the Canon R5C. That's basically a hybrid Canon photo menu as well as the Canon Cinema menu built into the camera. And that camera is actually Netflix capable. So there are certain cameras out there that are not necessarily red and all that people can afford a little better. And it shoots 8K as well. So there are some out there, but you're right, 100%. I mean, the lenses, that 50 to 1,000 lens is like 85,000 US or something crazy like that. Everybody I've seen use it, they've rented it. They haven't bought it. But,
absolutely.
Yeah. So,
but
right.
you know, I love it. I love nature video. I mean, the other thing is my wife's Norwegian, and we've really made a commitment just recently, actually, to say we're going to spend more time in the Arctic. You know, we're really going to spend more time in Arctic Scandinavia, up in Lapland and stuff. So we're already putting together some workshops up there and some trips on our own up there. And I'd love to make little films, you know, sort of for these things, because you know these places are special. You know, but it's like your backyard.
Sure.
You know,
well, and that's it. And you know how the old saying goes, you know, you don't realize what you have until you're not here anymore, per se, I guess. Like you're just like the incredible, we live in such an incredible place. But over the years, like Chris was born and raised in Calgary, weren't you, Chris? Like in
I
this
was
area,
actually born in Winnipeg, but
were you?
Yeah,
okay.
But I've lived in Calgary
long?
since I was 3 years old, so I don't know anything different. So
50 years plus, whatever it is.
Yeah, there you go. Hey,
and but you know, you just you just get so accustomed to the fact that I mean, I'm guilty of this. When I'm driving through the mountains, I don't even look anymore. I'm going to my destination because how many times have you seen Bow Lake? How many times have you seen this or that? When, excuse me, again, slow down, appreciate what you have, take your time. I'm really bad for FOMO when it comes to wildlife photography. Like if I'm headed to a certain place, I'm focused. I want to get there. Gorgeous light, I might stop, but I mean, I'm just
get off out of Joe's way. Get out of that.
That's right. But I mean, you're so right. I mean, it's such a beautiful place to share. You know, you just take, well, here's a perfect example. I grew up in Northern Ontario, and National Geographic kind of rated the drive from Sault Ste. Marie to Thunder Bay and around the northern part of Lake Superior is one of the top 10 in the world for fall colors. Now, the landscape. So and I grew up right there, you know, amongst the Great Lakes, and you know, I kind of wish I spent more time, you know, appreciating it and just being involved or immersed in that landscape. Because right now I miss it so much. I'm like, you know, trying to plan a trip to go back just for the fall colors, where I had 20 plus years of that. But again, that being in your backyard, you're like, you know.
Yeah, Kananaskis country is so rubbish, you know?
No, and that's it, right? You know, like it's crazy. Like it's just, and you know, it's kind of funny too when you're thinking of that. It's just like, well, what am I going to go see? Like, you know, why even bother? And, you know, when
you're going to end up going to Northern Ontario just to probably end up visiting family.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get a chance for that.
Yeah,
you bet. But you're so right. And I think maybe a reset might be in order for me to just look at it with fresh eyes or however you know, whole new different mindset, go and just just start appreciating it from the beginning. And I bet you the excitement, everything will start coming back, and you know, wanting to experience more and yeah.
Even for me though, like I you know, I've had a video background on the technical side for years, but when I started getting to nature and wildlife, it was all photography, and then I started bringing my video career back into it, and just being able to see wildlife and the behavior and capturing it on video. And we were in Churchill in November, Joe and I, and being able to capture polar bears and sparring and different things there, and being able to capture that and bring it back, not only because, you know, it was cool to see and we were able to capture this amazing content, but also be able to show it to people that may not get the opportunity to be in these locations. You know what I mean? So, so I look at the video side a little differently in that sense, to be able to bring it to somebody that gets joy out of it, being able to see it.
And it goes back to that test for echo concept. You know, you're sharing with people, you know, the thing with nature landscapes, etc., is it's, you know, we are advocates for these places and the species that live there. And if we don't speak for them, they can't speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
So it's, people care about tigers in India or Bhutan or Sumatra or whatever, pandas in China. You know, people are complaining about China all the time for any number of reasons, but you know, if it was like, you know, something to do with pandas and all that, okay, we really care about pandas,
right?
You know, so it's national borders tend to disintegrate when we start talking about wildlife. You know, we find our commonality in nature, you know, because it doesn't have nationality, it doesn't have faith, it doesn't have color, you know,
right?
It doesn't have gender. It just is. And I think that's why it's a universal thing for us, is that we can communicate love and compassion and empathy through nature art or nature inspired content. So again, you know, I always end up picking on somebody when I do these things. And, you know, Joe's going to get it. Because it's like, you know, our own desires can become really tiny in comparison to some of these bigger issues. You know, it's like, you know, we talk about first world problems all the time. Yep. You know, it's like, or FOMO and this type of stuff. In the big scheme of things, it's nothing, you know. So I think the big question I would put to Joe on that is when he was talking about, you know, wanting to get from A to B and not noticing the mountains anymore and stuff like that, is to take a minute and say, well, how do you feel about that? And it's like, well, I don't care. I'm actually quite happy that I don't look at them anymore. Then fine, don't do anything about it. But if it's like, no, that's a shame. I don't feel good about that. I don't like how that has happened. And that's great. Do something about it. You know,
absolutely.
And it's that simple.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally get that, and I appreciate that. But I think it just boils down to slowing down. Just taking it all in.
I remember when I quit smoking about 20 odd years ago, and a lot of people struggle to quit smoking. You know, it's an addictive thing. And someone said, "Oh, what method did you use?" And I said, "Oh, I've got a really, really good method. It worked a breeze." And they said, "Oh, well, was it patches or gum or hypnosis?" And I said, "No." I said, "It was really, really simple. Every time I wanted a cigarette, I didn't have one."
There you go. That's it.
Wow, that seems pretty simple.
Absolutely. Well, it was that mind shift. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
It's just one day you just decide, nope, no more.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
People tend to overthink their certain issues, and they just need to.
100%. I was just talking to Alister about China and stuff, and talking about travel and how it's intimidating because I overthink it. I mean, I'm done the trip and back home before I've even looked at flights. You know, like it's just one of those things. Like, what if, and I'm just like, I got to learn to step back from that.
It is what it is, Joe.
Well, that's Chris's favorite saying. What's he knows. He knows. It kind of.
I'm pushing his button with that one.
Pushing my button sometimes, but it certainly is. I mean, you know, I've got a big trip coming up to Svalbard in the end of July, and a little bit of anxiety and, you know, what's going to happen. Am I going to get there on time? I'm putting in a huge buffer, like days, just in case my luggage doesn't make it, so I don't miss the trip and stuff like that. But it's one of those things. I guess I got to get more of that mindset of just, you know what, what's going to happen is going to happen. You're going to deal with it. You're going to end up back home, and then you move on. Like, you know,
you're just a passenger in the road of life.
There's someone was talking to me recently about Michael J. Fox, and this is brilliant because obviously he's got Parkinson's and it's this degenerative thing, and he was getting interviewed not long ago, and the reporter said to him, "Don't you worry about the future in terms of how bad it's going to get." And he said, "No, I don't, because then I'll have to live it twice." And it's just like,
wow. Oh.
So, you know.
Oh, wow.
If you can do that, if he can say that,
kidding.
given his circumstances, then it puts our rather small concerns into perspective.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm
That's
going
crazy.
to bring a sofa with me to Pincher Creek.
I'm sure the lineup would go up through the door, Alister.
Yeah,
Book 15-minute slots.
Some might be laying on it longer than others.
That's a good idea. I won't bring books. I'll just do therapy sessions, 15 minutes.
15-minute slots. That'll pay for your trip there and back, plus some.
Well, yeah,
that's awesome.
Throw in a foot massage.
Have some Rush playing in the background. Perfect.
Famously relaxing.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Funny.
Well, sir, we have one last comment or one last question for you there, and we tend to end our sessions this way. And of course, if there's anything you can share, to aspiring photographers, people just starting out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about, improving skill or, technical stuff like that, which I don't think you would have answered that way anyway. So anything you can share with our audience, Alister?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some warning could have been good for that one.
Oh, that's why we don't send out questions.
We don't warn anybody.
Right. Well, what I would suggest is your gut knows better than you think, and to trust your intuition. So personal taste is something that people think they have to develop, whereas I think it's something we have. And I think when it comes to creativity, you're never going to produce your best work unless you surprise yourself. So you can't intellectualize your way to becoming more creative. You have to surprise yourself. So I think embracing the spirit of play is a really important part of things. And I think this is why a lot of what I've spoken about this afternoon has been about not getting in our own way. And, we do talk about our intellect an awful lot, and we are, we are a thinking being. And I think an awful lot of the time that thinking really gets in our way because it stops us from surprising ourselves. And I tend to feel that true creativity is going to come out of experimentation and play and failure. And if you discover upon something that you really love, then and you surprise yourself and you get a genuine sense of joy out of it, it doesn't matter what other people say about it. You're onto something. And the problem these days is it's very difficult to build an audience.
I totally agree with you there. It's absolutely. I almost feel for some of these people that are some people these creatives starting today.
From scratch.
I wouldn't. I don't think I would. I mean, I was really lucky because 2004 I joined a forum. It was naturescapes.net and then naturephotographers.net. Nature Photographers, then NPN was the other one I joined. And I met people like Adam Gibbs and Guy Tal and Mark Adamus and Sean Bagshaw and, a few others. And, we were just this little gang, of photographers who decided that we wanted to start pushing boundaries. And we were still trying to marry the limitations of the medium with what we saw in the world, like dynamic range and all of this type of stuff. And, the whole blending images and multiple exposures. And then Tony Kuiper developed the whole luminosity mask side of things. And, this time was an incredible time, but we all got well known together. Some put more of an effort into that and became really well known. But back then, there just wasn't as many of us. It was as simple as that. Now I would hate to try and start today. I just don't think I'd have the stamina for it. So, I think one of the things I often talk about in presentations is, why are you making photographs? What is your motivation for making photographs? And I think people need to be extraordinarily honest with themselves. And if that honest answer is, I want to be famous and world-renowned and popular, then you better have a heart of stone. Because you're going to need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then another thing with my business is that I want to help as many other photographers as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I often speak about other people's work during my own stuff. And you guys having me on here, I'll share this with my newsletter to point guys, point my audience in your direction and all of that type of stuff. So it's a very, if you going back to the advice thing, is, find your tribe, find your peers and work with your peers. And if it's a bunch of you that's trying to break out, try and break out together. If you're just making images for yourself, then understand that, you get in your own way with your own problems. So working on this guy is hugely important. So yeah, any other advice? Yeah, buy everything I've ever produced.
Absolutely.
Subscribe to my newsletter.
That was the last part there, Alister. Yeah, we'll have a link to all his products, and if you want to get any better, you have to purchase all of Alister's books.
Pretty much.
eBooks. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the only path.
It's the only path.
That's right.
Do you have openings on any of your workshops still, or no? Or are they pretty full?
There's one spot in Morocco in February next year.
Okay.
I think this year's booked, Alister. From what I looked, you might have a spot or something left for this year.
Yeah,
for the Rockies
the stuff. I don't know about Adam. I mean, Adam manages all the Canadian stuff, so I'm not 100% sure of what the deal is there.
Sure,
there might be a spot or two for the January ones in the Rockies. I will be releasing some new stuff for 2026 reasonably soon, but that will always go out through the newsletter. That's where that get announced. So really, if you're interested in anything that I'm doing, the newsletter is the place to go.
Absolutely. And we'll have a link to that too. Everybody listening, of course, based on all our other podcasts, every single link is going to be below Alister. So they've got access to your social medias, your newsletter, your products, your workshops, your teaching, everything else. So everybody will be able to catch up with you and see what you have to offer there too. So.
Much appreciated, guys. I really hugely appreciate it.
Well, the big part of what we like to do as well is bring people on. A lot of people know who you are, but there's that one person out there, or maybe more, that don't know who you are, and I think they'll be very inspired by this conversation with what you said today. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's an honor. It really is, to get to do this and to speak to you guys is a huge pleasure. So yeah, thank you very much.
Well, we really appreciate it, Alister. And thanks again, everyone, for listening to the Nature Photo Guys podcast. As always, we appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Before we wrap up, we'd like to thank the Camera Store for supporting the Nature Photo Guys podcast.
They're a legendary name in photography, and their support helps us keep bringing you these episodes.
Don't forget to check them out at thecamerastore.com for all your photography and video needs.
Thanks for joining us on the Nature Photo Guys podcast. If you have any questions, contact us at info@thenaturePhotoGuys.ca or message us on Facebook and Instagram at the Nature Photo Guys podcast. Visit YouTube and subscribe to our channel to watch all our latest videos. Or follow and listen to our latest podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on our website at thenaturePhotoGuys.ca. We'll catch you next time on the Nature Photo Guys podcast.